Chapter 1161. I want you. Lu Jishi frowned, looked at Heshi pitifully and worriedly, and said in a low voice, "But if this is the case, wouldn't it be harder for Shiyu to stay in this academy than to be expelled from the academy? Ha! Isn't this just right? Anyway, what he is good at is not cultivation and studying medicine, but selling his looks and bootlicking the big shot. Now that he has been expelled from the branch, isn't it a good chance for him to fortify his pamper? Anyway, don't come to our branch. I don't want to be in the company of such a person. See, he still has the face to stand here. If it is me, I would have begged the academy to expel me. Shiyu, just give up. No branch will want you at all, ha." Everyone was laughing at Shiyu, who was on the side, but suddenly a deep voice came from not far away. "Easy, such a good seedling, such a potential young man, you all actually don't want him? That's great. I didn't expect such a good seedling to come to our branch. This is really a huge bargain for me." Ha! Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, and they saw a messy-looking old man staring at Shiyu with scorching eyes. He walked toward her quickly. His face was filled with joy. Without waiting for Heshi to respond, he grabbed her wrist. "Little young man, they don't want you, I want you. Why don't you come to our branch?" There was silence in the square, and Lu Jishi's face distorted. At this time, someone in the crowd shouted in a low voice, "It's Dean Zeng from the Huang Medical Branch." The Huang Medical Branch was the lowest-level branch of the entire Miracle Healer Academy. It could also be said to be a concentration camp for the poor students and garbage of the entire academy. However, no matter how bad the Huang Medical Branch was, they would not want Shiyu to go in. Dean Zeng even said that Shiyu was a good seedling. This was simply absurd. Heshi looked at Zeng Shoyue up and down. This man had the cultivation of nascent soul later stage, and his aura was pure and gentle. It seemed that he was the most suitable to be a doctor. She glanced at Zeng Shoyue's hands, which were stained with the smell of herbs. The smell was very thick. It seemed that he invested many times in refining pill. It was just strange that there was a looming black air on Zeng Shoyue's body, which seemed to be devouring his pure aura. However, these had nothing to do with Heshi. She had only two purposes in Miracle Healer Academy, which were to find Wu Qi and to learn pill refining. She smiled slightly and said without hesitation, "Okay." Zeng Shoyue was overjoyed immediately as he held Heshi's hand. However, Lu Jishi suddenly stepped forward and said worriedly, "Dean Zeng, you are willing to take in Shiyu, is it because some big shot protects him, so you want to keep him in the Huang Medical Branch so as to increase the bargaining power of the Huang Medical Branch? There is nothing wrong with your behavior, but if Shiyu finds out in the future, I'm afraid it will break his heart." As soon as Lu Jishi said these words, everyone's eyes on Zeng Din suddenly became a little subtle. Everyone knew that the Huang Medical Branch was the worst branch of the Miracle Healer Academy. Whether it was the pill cauldron, the array, the medicinal pills or crystal stones provided to students every year, they were all the lowest. It turns out that Dean Zeng takes in Shiyu because he knew that there is someone behind him, so he wants to gain power for Huang Medical Branch. Zeng Shoyue heard what Lu Jishi meant, but he was not angry. He said with a cold smile instead, "Student Lu doesn't have to worry about the reason I recruit Shiyu. As for whether Shiyu has the strength or not, I believe Kai Yu, beside you, knows better than everyone else. Or I can suspect that, Lu Jishi, you said those words because you are afraid that Shiyu's talent and strength will surpass you one day." "You?" Lu Jishi's face suddenly turned gloomy and livid. She never thought that Zeng Shoyue would not give her face and humiliated her like this in public. After Zeng Shoyue said these words, he didn't even look at her, and he was about to leave with Heshi. Heshi stopped and smiled coldly. "Wait a minute, although I'm not going to stay at Heaven Medical Branch, I need to make myself clear with something." As she said that, she turned to look at Li Qingchuan and said slowly, "Dean Li, you just said you wanted to expel me from Heaven Medical Branch. What is the reason? I don't remember that students who didn't make mistakes can be arbitrarily expelled from the branch." Li Qingchuan's face turned gloomy. He said angrily, "Didn't make a mistake? You have the face to say such a thing? It is obvious that you cheated your way into the Miracle Healer Academy. Our Heaven Medical Branch people despised you and expelled you from the branch. What's wrong with that? Heshi's smile suddenly turned cold, and her eyes were like sharp knives. Dean Lee, you can't slander indiscriminately. You said that I cheated my way into enter Miracle Healer Academy. Do you have any evidence? 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 What other evidence is needed? Who in the entire Miracle Healer Academy doesn't know? That means Dean Lee has no evidence. Heshi squinted and said slowly, I remember that Miracle Healer Academy has regulations to protect the students. If you slander a promising student for no reason, your punishment will not be light. Dean Lee, let me ask again, do you have evidence in your hands to prove that I cheated? If not, I will have to submit this matter to the Elder Council for arbitration. Li Qingquan was a little stunned all of a sudden, and the anger on his face turned into astonishment. He thought that since Shiyu came in by cheating, he would definitely feel guilty. Who knew that Shiyu was still so confident? Is it because he knows that his cheating will not be discovered? Thinking of this, Li Qingquan's face flashed with anger. He said coldly, Elder Qin of this year's entrance examination can testify this. He is your chief invigilator. Could it be that what he said could be wrong? Oh? Since it was said by Elder Qin, let him show me the evidence. Heshi turned her gaze at Elder Qin, who was not far away. As expected, Elder Qin was watching the excitement along with Chen Jianxing and all the candidates who participated in the same assessment as Heshi. Heshi smirked and grinned. It seems that there is no need for Dean Li to invite Elder Qin. I heard that you are the one who proved that I cheated in the second assessment? Elder Qin was questioned by Heshi, but he didn't appear guilty and flustered at all. Instead, he walked forward slowly. While walking, the pair of falcon-like eyes stared at Heshi coldly. If you don't want people to know, you shouldn't do it. Shiyu, since you did it, don't be afraid of letting people know. Chapter 1163. Image. With that said, he looked around and said slowly, I didn't want to be so ruthless. I hope that you can make a change and reform. However, Shiyu didn't seem to repent, but you have become even worse. Don't blame me for revealing your true face in front of everyone. Heshi's eyes squinted slightly, and she had already guessed what Elder Qin was going to do. Sure enough, Elder Qin quickly took out the recording stone and activated it. The video soon started playing. When it was all over, the audience was in an uproar. Their eyes looking at Heshi were filled with anger. The image that Elder Qin showed was very short. The first segment was that Shiyu was separating from the team. The second segment was that when Wang Hai was being chased by Poison Spiritual Bee, Shiyu stood by and watched. The third segment was that before fighting the black bear, Shiyu took out a bunch of medicinal pills and distributed them to everyone. The fourth segment was the battle between Shiyu and Black Bear. Her strength was astounding. Elder Qin took back the recording stone and sneered. Shiyu, you are just at the foundation establishment stage. You couldn't even survive in the elusive forest at all, so why did you want to separate from everyone? Haha, because you had hidden medicinal pills on you and you don't want other teammates to know, right? That's the first doubt. When Wang Hai was chased by Poison Spiritual Bee, you stood by because you had no ability to deal with the poisonous spiritual bee. However, when you faced the black bear, you suddenly had the strength to fight against rank 7 magical beast. This proves that you are either insidious or you are not competent enough. This is the second doubt. Before the battle with Black Bear, you suddenly gave everyone medicinal pills, and they were even the best quality spiritual pill, which is not something you can make with your current strength. Your invigilator Kai, you said that he watched you all the way, but he didn't see you refine the pills. So where did you get these medicinal pills? This is the third doubt. The last point, and the most incredible thing to me, is that you are only at the foundation establishment stage, but you could actually fight against the black bear. Some people even say that you were swallowed by the black bear, but you could still escape? This was hard to understand for us, but now that all the doubts are compared, it becomes clear. You took medicinal pills that improved your cultivation for a short period of time, so your strength skyrocketed. You clearly brought these medicinal pills into the secret realm. After Elder Qin said this, a smug smile appeared on his face. Shiyu, you think that because of the rank 7 magical beast, many recording stones have been destroyed, so we have no evidence to prove that you cheated. You didn't expect that we could recover these few images, right? How do you explain this now? In the crowd, Chen Jianqing also stood up and said, among all the people present, only I and Shiyu were on the same team. I saw Wang Hai's death with my own eyes, so I can swear that the image is true. Shiyu has no real talent at all. He passed the second assessment entirely by cheating. The words of Elder Qin and Chen Jianqing were well-founded, so everyone was more certain that Shiyu must have cheated in the assessment. He obviously cheated his way in, but he didn't feel guilty at all. He is even arrogant. Moreover, in the second image, Shiyu even let his teammate die. Such a sinister person dares to stay in Miracle Healer Academy so arrogantly. This is so unbearable. Chapter 1164. Fight me if you aren't convinced. However, Heshi laughed slowly as if the images she saw was just a joke. Oh, it turns out that Elder Qin, you suspect me of cheating because I'm at the foundation establishment stage, so I'm not capable of doing these? Am I right? Elder Qin said coldly, is it not? You can compete with rank 7 magical beast with just the strength of the foundation establishment stage. If you didn't take any secret medicine, who would believe it? You are only at the foundation establishment stage. Can you refine the medicinal pills yourself? They were even the grade 4-5 spiritual pill. Hee, you dare to say that you are not cheating? Heshi brushed the hair on her temples and said leisurely, in this way, the matter is very simple. It just happened that all the people who participated in the assessment that day, except Wei Chengyuan, were present. Didn't you all say that my strength is buffed by secret medicine? If who isn't convinced, come and fight me. Or, you can all fight me together. Because of Heshi's words, everyone's eyes turned to the people who took the same assessment with Heshi. Among these 9 people, 5 were Gold Core stage, 4 were Meridian stage. All of them were Meridian stage peak stage. Dealing with a foundation establishment stage Shiyu was an easy task. However, the 9 people who had competed with Heshi were timid inexplicably seeing the young man in front of them. Among them, Han Qianer, who had the most beautiful appearance and the most profound cultivation, frowned and took a step back without a trace. Heshi turned her eyes to Chen Jianqing. Didn't you say that my strength isn't real? Since that's the case, you can go first. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. However, when his eyes met Feng Yunqing's obscure gaze, he was certain. He swallowed a medicinal pill without being noticed, then he took a deep breath and walked to Heshi in a few steps. Okay, Shiyu, if you hadn't provoked the poisonous spiritual bee and turned them against us, Wang Hai wouldn't die. I will teach you a lesson for Wang Hai in heaven. As he said that, he sneered. Looking at Shiyu's weak body, his confidence grew stronger and stronger. But let's make it clear first, the power is uncontrollable. If there is any damage during the fight, don't blame me. Heshi smiled and said, same here. At this time, Chen Jianqing had already felt the majestic power in his body. Feng Yunqing had told him that this kind of medicinal pill would give him great power in a short period of time, even reaching the level of pseudo-gold core stage. Even if Shiyu is really capable, can he still compete against the gold core stage? Today, I will kill him in front of everyone. Chen Jianqing's spiritual power suddenly soared, and a solid flame in his hand suddenly grew larger, turning him into a fireball as he charged toward Heshi. In the academy, it was not allowed to fight with spells, but if it was allowed by the dean and the deputy dean, it would be another matter. At this time, the powerful spiritual power that erupted from Chen Jianqing's body and the scorching power of his fireball made everyone look at him differently. Unexpectedly, this person, who was only at the Meridian stage, had such strength. Many people looked at Shiyu with pity and gloat. He can only blame himself for overestimating himself. Now that he is about to die, what's the point of staying in the academy? Chapter 1165. Regardless of life or death, Heshi felt interested in her mind when Chen Jianqing was rushing toward her. Just now, Elder Qin said that I relied on the secret medicine to improve my spiritual power in a short time. This Chen Jianqing used such a method. Chen Jianqing's identity and background are just ordinary, so how did he get this secret medicine? As she thought, her expression did not change in the slightest. Just as Qin Jianqing approached her, she rose up into the air and fell suddenly. Ah! Chen Jianqing let out a shrill cry, then everyone heard a loud bang. These noises stunned everyone. When everyone came back to their senses, they found that Heshi had stepped on Chen Jianqing under his feet. Chen Jianqing, whose chest was sunken and several ribs were broken, was wailing like a pig. His overbearing momentum just now had all gone. The square fell into a strange silence for a while. Everyone watched this scene in disbelief. Everyone saw it when Chen Jianqing launched the fire attribute spell just now. The momentum was so shocking that many students felt that even they could only resist it with a cost. But Shiyu easily avoided such an attack. Elder Qin's face was ugly. There was a trace of panic in his eyes. He didn't expect that Shiyu actually had some skills. There were indeed cases that the Foundation Establishment Stage cultivator could beat the Meridian Stage, but such cases were really rare. Shiyu, how can you be so vicious? It's just a practice match. You actually hurt Chen Jianqing to this extent? Elder Qin preemptively shouted. This time, Zheng Shuyue said with a sneer, Elder Qin, are you deaf? Who was the first to say that the power is uncontrollable? Now that this guy is injured, our Shiyu has to be blamed? Don't you feel shameful? As soon as Zheng Shuyue said this, Elder Qin's face suddenly turned pale. Whether it was cultivation or status, Zheng Shuyue was higher than him. Moreover, because of the strength Shiyu just showed, the eyes of many Miracle Healer Academy students have begun to change. And Li Qingquan frowned even more. There was a hint of regret and irritability in his eyes. A genius who can beat the peak of Meridian Stage with the strength of the Foundation Establishment Stage. If this is his strength, Heaven Medical Branch will regret to let this genius go. Elder Qin's eyes rolled and he spoke to Han Qianer solemnly, Han Qianer, you go and fight with Shiyu. That day in Elusive Forest, even you were not the Black Bear opponent, but Shiyu could match the Black Bear. This is obviously impossible. You go and show everyone Shiyu's true face. I refuse. Han Qianer interrupted Elder Qin without thinking. There was no hesitation in her voice. I'm not Shiyu's opponent. I don't want to humiliate myself. What? Han Qianer of the Gold Core Stage said that he is not Shiyu's opponent? How is this possible? It should be that Han Qianer has a good relationship with Shiyu, so she is deliberately protecting him, right? I've also heard that Han Qianer has been protecting Shiyu and refuses to exclude Shiyu with other freshmen. I think she has a crush on Shiyu, right? Yes, how can a Gold Core Stage Intermediate Stage lose against the Foundation Establishment Stage? Isn't this a joke? Chapter 1166. Feng Yunqing's turn. Elder Qin originally had a gloomy and frightening expression because of Han Qianer's refusal, but at this time he felt a little more comfortable when he heard everyone's discussion. But Han Qianer refused to fight and Wei Chengyuan and Shiyu are on the same boat. Who else can win against Shiyu beautifully? At this moment, a tall and ordinary-looking woman suddenly appeared from the crowd. She said to Elder Qin, Elder Qin, let me fight with Shiyu. Who is this man? You don't know her? This person was sent by the Feng family to replace Feng Lianing. Her name is Feng Yunqing. She looks too different from Feng Lianing, just like a man. Don't look at her average appearance, her cultivation base is also in the Gold Core Stage Intermediate Stage. A Gold Core Stage Intermediate Stage fight with a Foundation Establishment Stage, isn't it unfair? Zheng Shuyue said even more angrily, Elder Qin, you actually led a Gold Core Stage to fight with a Foundation Establishment Stage? It's even a fight that can cause death. Do you still want your face? When Elder Qin saw Feng Yunqing's cultivation, he felt certain in his heart. He stroked his beard and smiled, Dean Zheng must be joking. Today's fight is not to prove whose strength is stronger, but to prove Shiyu's innocence. If he can't win against Yunqing, it means that he is cheating. Even if he is beaten to death, no one should be blamed for it. Zheng Shuyue was speechless. A flash of killing intent flashed in Feng Yunqing's eyes. She walked slowly to Shiyu and said with a cold smile, Shiyu, I'm Feng Yunqing who participated in the assessment in the same assessment as you. Your matters stirred quite a huge commotion in these past few days. Even us who participated in the same assessments as you are implicated by you. I don't know whether you cheated or not, but I also hope that you are wronged. Therefore, I will never show mercy in the fight. If I overdo it, I hope you don't blame me for it. Heshi stepped back from Qin Jianqing. She saw that although his face twisted in pain, he kept looking at Feng Yunqing. In addition, Feng Yunqing suddenly jumped out at this time. This is really interesting. Even she thought so in her mind, she didn't reveal it on her face. She just said the same sentence, same here. Feng Yunqing's spiritual power was a mutated thunder attribute and a mutated fire attribute. Although she didn't have sky spiritual root, her power was very powerful. The entire square was lit up for a while. It was a thunder mixed with fire. Feng Yunqing held a dark red flying sword in his hand. The killing intent filled in her eyes. The sword light slashed at Heshi with a huge momentum. Everyone was taken aback by Feng Yunqing's strength. This woman, who looked ordinary and had ordinary spiritual power, actually used such a vicious spell. This blow was obviously trying to kill Shiyu on the spot. Everyone's mood was a little complicated at this time. On the one hand, they felt that Shiyu died, but when they thought that Feng Yunqing was at the gold core stage and Shiyu was only at the foundation establishment stage, it was too pitiful for her to die like that. But the next moment, the scene that shocked everyone happened again. Shiyu stood on the spot with a calm expression as if the incoming thunder and fire were nothing in her eyes at all. Her slender fingers made a gesture and cast a strange array. When the thunder and fire rushed in front of her, Shiyu's whole body suddenly flashed a gleaming blue light. A water curtain with rich spiritual power suddenly spread around her, wrapping her tightly. Chapter 1167, Shiyu's Strength, Water Spiritual Shield? Someone exclaimed, isn't this shield can only be condensed only by the meridian stage later stage? But even the water spiritual shield can't resist Feng Yunqing's attack. However, everyone was stunned by what happened next. When the flames mixed with the blasting sound rushed into the water spiritual shield, not only did it not burn the water spiritual shield, but it was devoured completely by the shield. When the flames and the water shield were removed at the same time, there was only a young man with a half-smile standing there. She stared coldly at Feng Yunqing and Elder Qin, who had ashen faces. My God! He actually blocked Feng Yunqing's full blow. The water spiritual shield is only a low-level shield. How can it block Feng Yunqing's thunderfire attack? Is this Shiyu's strength really so powerful? Just when everyone was in shock, Heshi was already holding a long sword emitting a 5-color light. As soon as the long sword appeared, a powerful spiritual pressure enveloped the entire square, causing the Meridian stage disciples to stagger back in shock. This was the Li Shui sword that had been evolved in the battle with the Black Bear. At this time, perhaps it could no longer be called Li Shui sword, but under the reforging, it had the function of exerting the spiritual power of the 5 elements. Heshi smiled slightly and looked at Feng Yunqing with cold eyes. Your full blow doesn't even tickle. Now, I'll let you try my attack. As soon as she finished her sentence, the colorful Li Shui sword suddenly lit up with golden and red light. Immediately afterward, a fire dragon mixed with blasting sound was launched toward Feng Yunqing. My God! Isn't this the move that Feng Yunqing just used? Shiyu can also use it? Did Shiyu learn it after watching it once? Isn't that a real genius? Isn't Shiyu's spiritual root fire and water? Why can he still cast thunder element spells? Don't you find that her sword is weird? It exudes 5 elements spiritual power. Everyone's shocking discussion could not counteract the panic in Feng Yunqing's heart. She originally wanted to defeat Shiyu in front of others and made her die a graveless death. However, now she found out that Shiyu's strength was no worse than her. How is this possible? A foundation establishment stage can actually fight with the gold core stage intermediate stage. How is this possible? Feng Yunqing's face was distorted. With a clear whistle, she moved toward the fire snake. The fire snake was smashed apart by her sword. Feng Yunqing was shocked by the spiritual power. She felt blood surging out from her throat, but she held it back. I must kill Shiyu no matter what. Heshi didn't hesitate, flew up and fought with Feng Yunqing. This time, instead of using Maha inheritance, she used solid swordsmanship and spiritual power to fight Feng Yunqing. And such a simple way of fighting also shocked the Miracle Healer Academy students who were watching. Not only spells and spiritual power, but she was also faster and more ruthless than Feng Yunqing. Is such a person really only at the foundation establishment stage? Ah! Feng Yunqing finally let out a painful howl and fell from the air. His shoulder was pierced by Heshi's Li Shuai sword. Heshi fluttered to the ground. Her clothes were not messed up as if she was just casually strolling in the courtyard instead of being in a life-and-death battle. Chapter 1168. Bad eyesight. There was silence in the square. Feng Yunqing was defeated by Shi Yu of the Foundation establishment stage. Elder Qin's face was very unsightly. Lu Zhishi also clenched his fists tightly, and the dark light in her eyes seemed to overflow. Feng Yunqing stared at Heshi, and she suddenly launched a blackwater arrow at Heshi. Feng Yunqing's action was quick, decisive and secretive. Before the people in the square realized, the blackwater arrow was already in front of Shiyu. Ah! Someone exclaimed with a voice full of worry and nervousness. After these two battles, many people's thoughts about Shiyu had changed subtly. For Feng Yunqing's sneak attack, dissatisfaction and contempt arose in many people's minds. Feng Yunqing had a sinister smile on her face. As long as I can kill Shiyu, so what if I'm despised by others? However, the next moment, Feng Yunqing's smile froze on her face. The water arrow penetrated the position where Shiyu was, but there was no scream nor a piercing sound. Shiyu in everyone's eyes was disappeared into the air like a reflection in the water. The water arrow was still moving forward, more fiercely, toward Elder Qin who was standing behind Shiyu. Elder Qin was frightened, but he didn't put the black water arrow in his eyes at all. He just flicked his hand gently. With his nascent soul stage strength, he wouldn't even bat an eye at the water arrow released by a mere gold core stage martial artist. It was Shiyu who made him furious. After flicking away the black water arrow, Elder Qin felt a tingling pain when he was about to speak. He couldn't help groaning and looked at his hand in shock. His right hand was already black at this time, and the edge of the palm that touched the water arrow was still swollen as if thick water was flowing inside. This is poisonous. At this moment, Heshi's figure reappeared in the same place with a half smile. Not only sneak attack but also poison. Hee Feng Yunqing, you are really merciless. How could Elder Qin not understand what was going on? He suddenly shouted furiously, Shiyu Feng Yunqing, are you too tired of living? You dare to hurt the elder in Miracle Healer Academy? I want to expel all of you from the academy. Heshi dug her ears with a mocking expression on her face. Elder Qin, are you too old that your eyesight and memory deteriorate? It is obviously Feng Yunqing who poisoned you. What does it have to do with me? Elder Qin suddenly felt a heart-piercing pain from his entire arm when he wanted to speak. A hint of panic flashed on his face. This poison is so powerful. Elder Qin, can you let Zhishi heal you first? Then we will discuss the disposal of Shiyu and Feng Yunqing. Saying that, she released light blue water spiritual power into Elder Qin's body. Soon, the originally piercing pain was slowly healed by the powerful spiritual power, and the original swollen hand gradually returned to its original state. Lu Zhishi breathed a sigh of relief, then withdrew his spiritual power and gave Elder Qin a bottle of medicinal pills. His face slightly pale and said, Elder Qin, it's fine now. Just take this bottle of detoxifying medicinal pill, and you will be fully recovered in a few days. Elder Qin said gratefully, Zhishi, your medical skills are really outstanding. You are almost catching up with your father. Fortunately, you are here today. Chapter 1169. Qing Wan was angry. Lu Zhishi smiled slightly, and her expression was gentle and elegant. Everyone in the square looked at her with admiration and worshipped her as a goddess. Lu Zhishi had long been accustomed to this, so she took it for granted. However, in this square, there was also a person who was obviously a young man, but he had a more beautiful and delicate face than her. He was obviously at the foundation establishment stage, but he was more talented than her. Moreover, he looked at her with calm eyes like he was looking at a beggar, even more contempt than beggars. How could this make Lu Jishi reconciled? How could she not hate her? Lu Jishi took a deep breath and spoke to Heshi. Shiyu, didn't you see Elder Qin standing behind you? You should know that if you dodge, Elder Qin will definitely be hurt. Before Heshi could speak, Qing Luan's indignant voice suddenly sounded behind her. Miss Lu, according to your words, my young master should stand motionless in front of Elder Qin and be poisoned to death by Feng Yunqing? My young master's life is not life? Since Miss Lu is so kind and righteous, why didn't you block the water arrow for Elder Qin? How can you be so high-sounding? Heshi was stunned for a moment, then she saw Qing Luan trembling with anger. She smiled and said, Why did you come here? Qing Luan clenched her fists and said, I noticed that you haven't come back until noon, so I came to have a look. I didn't expect to see so many people working together to bully you. She pointed to Lu Jishi and said indignantly, Who is this fairy Jishi? She lost to my young master in medical skills in Yangon City. How could she question my young master for cheating? You dare to say that you can beat my young master in medical skills? Lu Jishi's face turned unsightly. She gritted her teeth with a flushed face as if she had been slapped fiercely in the public. However, when she looked at Shiyu's half-smile, she really did not dare to refute, because she was completely unsure of being better than Shiyu in medical skills. Qing Luan turned her eyes to the group of candidates who were in the same assessment as Heshi and scolded fiercely, And you ungrateful people! Did you forget who saved you from the desperate secret realm? My young master even almost died in the stomach of the black bear just for you trash. Now you all accuse my young master of cheating? Pooey! She turned her eyes around and cursed, You better see clearly what kind of villains these people are. Stay away from them in the future, lest you save them, but they drag you down instead. The few freshmen who participated in the assessment with Shiyu looked shameful after hearing the words. They were angry, but they couldn't refute Qing Luan's words at all. Especially looking at the subtle gazes of the surrounding students, they really wished to dig a hole and burrow their heads into it. At this moment, they all looked at Chen Jianxing fiercely. If it wasn't for this person's instigation, they would not have suspected Shiyu and spoke ill of Shiyu at all. But now the result of the fight proved that Shiyu was actually stronger than Feng Yunqing, which meant that it was unlikely that he cheated. Chapter 1170. Revenge. Instead, they were given the title of ungrateful people. From now on, they had to lay low in the academy. How could this make them hateful? Chen Jianxing, who was hit by everyone with an eye knife, was originally moaning on the ground because of his broken ribs. Suddenly, his face changed greatly, and a sharp wailing came out of his mouth. The onlookers were all taken aback by his reaction. Before anyone could check what happened, they saw his appearance aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. Originally, Chen Jianxing was under 30 years old, and he was at the peak of the meridian stage. Although he looked rather old, he was at most in his 30s. But now, he looked as if he was 50 years old. His face was full of wrinkles. Chen Jianxing looked at his shriveled hands, and his whole body was trembling with fright. He suddenly remembered the pill Feng Yunqing gave him, and he immediately crawled toward Feng Yunqing frantically. What did you give me to eat? Why will I turn into this look? Give me the antidote, give me the antidote. Feng Yunqing's situation at this time was not much better than that of Chen Jianxing. Her shoulder was pierced by Heshi's sword, and she was bleeding heavily. She seemed to have lost her strength. However, when she heard Chen Jianxing's words, there was still a hint of panic in her eyes. She said, Chen Jianxing, what nonsense are you talking about? When did I give you medicine? You were injured by Shiyu yourself, so you should go to Shiyu. No. It's not Shiyu. You gave me this secret medicine to improve my power for a short time, and you said that I could defeat Shiyu by taking it. You must have done something in that medicine, right? Chen Jianxing at this time, not only did he feel old, but he felt uncomfortable as if he was on fire. He screamed, You're afraid that I will say that you pushed Shiyu in the secret realm, so you want to kill me. That's right, Feng Yunqing. You want to kill me? I won't let you succeed. As soon as these words came out, the students in the audience were in an uproar. Everyone's expressions changed when they looked Feng Yunqing, especially those freshmen who participated in this assessment together. They stared at Feng Yunqing in disbelief, wishing to tear him to pieces. Hashi looked at Feng Yunqing coldly and said slowly, "The other person who pushed me is really you. Feng Yunqing, are you trying to kill me because of the enmity between the Feng family and me?" Feng Yunqing's expression changed, and it took a long time before she gritted her teeth and sneered. "It has nothing to do with the Feng family. It's just that you killed my eldest brother. Can't I seek revenge from you?" "Your brother?" "That's right, my eldest brother's name is Feng Yunhai." Feng Yunqing glared at Heshi. "Shiyu, you are a busy man. I bet you have long forgotten that on the Breaking Spirit Mountain, such a person died at your hands. It was even a horrible death. But my eldest brother loved me since I was a child and gave me the best resources. Of course, I want to avenge him. I only hate that I'm not good enough and I underestimated you. I can't kill you with my own hands." Hashi raised her eyebrows, and her expression was indifferent and cruel. She didn't intend to explain at all. This was a world where the strong prey on the weak. Even if she killed Feng Yunhai, there was nothing she could change. But Lu Jishi took a step forward and frowned. "Shiyu, you are too ruthless. You watched your companions get killed by the poisonous spiritual bee in elusive forest, and now you even severely injured your batchmate. Now that Feng Yunqing accused you of killing her brother, you don't even feel any guilt. Even if you have such strength, aren't you being too conscienceless?" Chapter 1171. Who else? As soon as Lu Jishi said this, people, who had changed their minds due to Shiyu's strength, started to talk about her again. The eyes looking at Shiyu were not amazed and praised, but full of fear and rejection. Qing Luan was trembling with anger, and she said angrily, "Miss Lu, you keep saying that my young master is heartless? Why didn't you say it when Feng Yunqing wanted to kill my young master? When everyone felt that my young master would and even died in the previous battle, why didn't you show your compassion?" It turns out that Fairy Jishi's kindness and compassion also vary from person to person. Lu Jishi was speechless again for a while. Her eyes turned dark and unsightly. It wasn't that she had nothing to refute, but she thought very highly of herself and felt that refuting a maid would lower her style. Ren Shuling, who could help her talk usually, was so frightened by Shiyu that she let Jishi be humiliated by a lowly maid. Heshi sneered, stopped Qing Luan, who wanted to talk more, and said lightly, "Does me being heartless related to our core topic today? What I want now is for you to show evidence of my cheating. Who else is dissatisfied now? Stand out now, otherwise it will be my turn to settle the accounts with you." When Hashi said these words, she was looking at Elder Qin with mockery. The blue veins on Elder Qin's forehead were twitching violently. The boy in green clothes next to Elder Qin stepped forward and said angrily, "Shiyu, so what if your strength is good? That doesn't prove that you didn't sneak in medicinal pills. You can defeat the Black Bear and Feng Yunqing because you took the secret medicine beforehand." Hashi was about to be amused by the nonsense of this group of people. She pointed at Chen Jianqing and sneered, "You have also seen the fate of those who actually took the secret medicine. You said that I took the secret medicine? Forgive my ignorance. You can ask our president. Her father is the president of the Doctors Association and a doctor of the 10th rank. Can anyone answer if there is such a medicinal pill that can increase one's strength by 2 realms without any side effects?" Everyone's eyes couldn't help but look at Chen Jianqing. Needless to say, his strength didn't improve that much, and his miserable appearance was a solid proof. Now, although Chen Jianqing no longer groaned in pain, he was much weaker. Even his cultivation had degenerated to the intermediate stage of the condensation period. Obviously, the side effects were very serious. In fact, the secret medicine Feng Yunqing gave to Chen Jianqing was derived from cold eating pills. Although it would not be addictive, the side effects of taking it would be more serious and would occur immediately. Everyone in the square fell silent. Several deans looked at each other and shook their heads. Based on their medical level, it was reasonable to say that they were at the top in Miluo continent, but they had never heard of such a medicinal pill that could improve one's strength in a short period of time. Among the people present, the faces of Elder Qin and the Heaven Medical Branch's dean looked very unsightly. At this time, Heaven Medical Branch Dean even regretted his bowels. He knew that Shiyu was such a genius, and he would not let anyone run away no matter what. Against the Gold Core stage with the Foundation Establishment stage, this is even more terrifying than Lu Jishi, a peerless genius that is rare for thousands of years. Chapter 1172. Check assessment papers. The happiest of all was Zheng Shoyue. The more he saw Shiyu, the more delighted he was. He stroked his beard and laughed. How? Now that the fights are over and the mastermind behind the scenes has also been caught, does Elder Qin have any other ideas? The corner of Elder Qin's mouth twitched for a while, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Having strength does not mean that you didn't cheat. I will investigate this matter carefully. We will dismiss here today." "Wait a minute." Hashi sneered, interrupting Elder Qin's words. "Elder Qin, your high opinion is finished, but I haven't finished speaking yet." Elder Qin's face was ashen. "What else do you want to say?" Elder Qin is really a busy person who forgets things. Hashi sneered at him. "I applied to check the assessment paper for the written assessment 10 days ago, and Elder Qin said that I will be able to check it after I enter the academy. May I ask, can I check now?" Zheng Shoyue was startled and looked at Hashi. "You want to check the written assessment paper? Is there something wrong with your grades?" Hashi said with a half-smile, "Whether there is any problem, we will know if we check it." Zheng Shoyue turned his eyes on Qin Jianqing, who was in a bad state. He suddenly remembered that this Qin Jianqing was the top scorer in the written assessment. He even scored an unprecedented 999 points in the Miracle Healer Academy. Looking at this person with a useless look, he doesn't look like a peerless genius at all. On the other hand, this Shiyu that I like can beat the Gold Core stage at a young age. Zheng Shoyue's eyes lit up, and he immediately said, "Yes, students do have the right to check their papers. Now everyone is here, why don't you take out the assessment papers and let everyone present be a witness to see if Shiyu cheated or not?" Elder Qin frowned and was about to speak, then Lu Jishi suddenly stepped forward and said, "Shiyu has her right to check the papers. The papers should be in the Academy Student Council. I'll let someone get them." "Wait." Qing Wan interrupted Lu Jishi mercilessly. "You kept targeting my young master just now. Who knows you will not change the test paper on the way." Zheng Shoyue also nodded immediately, and he waved to the boy behind him. "You go with the secretary of the Academy Student Council. Be sure to bring back the written assessment papers intact." Lu Jishi's face turned green, but she couldn't say a word in the end. Kai Yu and Zhang Chong, who were not far away, looked even more despair than Lu Jishi. Kai Yu's face turned pale for a while. He tried to maintain his composure, but his clenched hands betrayed his emotions. On the other hand, Zhang Chong lowered his head, his body trembled slightly, and his feet kept moving as if he wanted to escape from this place. As for Qin Jianqing on the ground, he already had a mental breakdown, knowing that he could no longer escape. Shiyu's cheating had been dealt with in this square for several hours, but none of the onlookers had left. Everyone was stunned by the twists and turns. The papers of all the examinees were quickly taken over. Elder Qin took the test paper from the Academy Student Council officer and looked at Hashi coldly. "What's your dissatisfaction with your grades? Do you want to tell me that your grade is mistaken with someone else's grade, and it's even Qin Jianqing who scored 999, right?" Chapter 1173. What kind of genius? Elder Qin's words were full of irony, but Hashi smiled leisurely. "Elder Qin is really discerning. You are right, what I want to check is exactly the papers of Qin Jianqing and I." "Ha!" Elder Qin laughed angrily, looking at her like a lunatic. "Shiyu, do you think you are really a genius because you won the Gold Core stage in a fight? You think your assessment paper has exchanged with Qin Jianqing? How can there be such a coincidence?" Hashi smirked without shame, glanced across Kai Yu and Zhang Chong and said with a slight smile, "Why is Elder Qin so agitated? We will know if our papers had exchanged once we check it. After all, there was an invigilator behind every examinee. Even if the invigilator didn't see clearly, he can always recognize the patterns, right? Of course, it doesn't matter if they can't recognize it. At least, the handwriting of Chen Jianqing and I can always be proofread on the spot, right? If it really doesn't work, we can check all the questions on the paper. Deputy President Kai, what do you think? Kai Yu raised his head and met Heshi's eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything, only to feel a cold sweat on his back. Guilt and panic surged wildly in his mind. Along the way, Shiyu had brought him too much surprise and shock. If it weren't for Jishi, he would probably only admire such a genius instead of framing her. But now it was too late. Zhang Chang's face was even more ashen, but he was more relieved after the truth was finally exposed. When he thought that Shiyu might check the assessment paper, he was so nervous that he couldn't sleep the whole night. Now that he found that everything could no longer be concealed, he actually felt relieved. Zhang Chong suddenly stepped forward and said, "Shiyu is not wrong. It is indeed because of my mistakes that the two assessment papers were exchanged. The person who really scored 999 points in the assessment was Shiyu, and the one with 503 points was Chen Jianqing." As soon as Zhang Chong said this, the whole square was boiling. A young man at the foundation establishment stage not only won the fight against a gold core stage, but he also scored the highest score in the history of Miracle Healer Academy. This Shiyu, what kind of genius is this Shiyu? Does such a genius really need to cheat? And those deans looked at Shiyu with gleaming eyes, wishing they could snatch her immediately. Having such a genius in their own branches meant that they could shine in the branch competition and they could rise further. How could they not be moved by this? The Dean of Heaven Medical Branch had gritted his teeth regretfully at this time. He looked at Elder Qin with a vengeful gaze. Such a good seedling that is rarely seen in thousands of years, I actually expelled him. Elder Qin glared at Zhang Chong and said coldly, "Zhang Chong, what do you mean by this? Did you collude with Shiyu, so you spoke for him?" Miracle Healer Academy's assessment and review process has always been strict. How can the assessment papers be exchanged? You'd better explain it to me. Zhang Chang's face was full of bitterness. He closed his eyes, and when he opened his eyes again, his face was firm. "It's all my fault. I accidentally bumped into Deputy President Kai while collecting the papers. I didn't check it carefully when I picked it up and handed the paper." Chapter 1174. Apologize. He bit his lip, glanced at Kai Yu, and continued, "After the results were released, I knew that I had made a mistake, but I was afraid that the Academy would hold me accountable, so I never dared to say it. It has nothing to do with Deputy President Kai. He didn't read the content of Shiyu's answer sheet during the assessment, so he didn't know how much Shiyu scored. It was me. I knew that Chen Jianqing couldn't have scored 999 points, but I didn't dare to speak out for fear of being punished." Zhang Chang's voice was slightly sobbing. He lowered his head and said, "It is my mistake that caused Shiyu's troubles. I'm willing to accept any punishment." The square was silent, and everyone was looking at Zhang Chong, Lu Jishi, Kai Yu, and others. Someone whispered, "That is the most important entrance examination, but the people of the Academy Student Council are actually so irresponsible." Yeah, right. They didn't know the Black Bear went rampant and even framed Shiyu for cheating. Does the Academy Student Council have the ability to lead the students of the entire Academy? Did Kai Yu really not read Shiyu's answer sheet? Then he really wasn't serious in it? Or did he read it and deliberately didn't say it out of jealousy? That Chen Jianqing is too disgusting. He knew that he didn't score that, but he still showed off with the title of top scorer and even entered the Academy Student Council. No wonder I always feel something wrong in him. Hayes, Shiyu is the most pitiful. At first, he was framed for cheating, only now he realizes that even his grades have been changed. Lu Jishi bit her lips tightly, feeling that she was enveloped in shame and malice. The Academy Student Council and she as the president had always been high and respected at Miracle Healer Academy. But now, everyone was beginning to question their ability and character. She seemed to see the day when she was dragged down from the heaven because of Shiyu. She absolutely wouldn't allow this to happen. At this moment, Caillou suddenly gritted his teeth and took a step forward. This matter is not only Zhang Chang's fault. Lu Zixi suddenly came back to her senses and said without thinking, "This incident is the dereliction of duty by our Academy Student Council as a whole, not Zhang Chang's fault alone. Therefore, on behalf of the Academy Student Council, I'm here to apologize to everyone. For Zhang Chang's mistakes, we will also make corresponding penalties." Caillou's face looked pale. He seemed to want to say something, but Lu Zixi grabbed him and stopped him with her eyes. Caillou's eyes swept across Zhang Chong and Shiyu's faces, and he finally lowered his head in shame. Qing Wan sneered and said, "President Lu is really strange. The people of your Academy Student Council obviously mistreated my young master. Why are you apologizing to everyone? Before that, shouldn't you apologize to my young master first?" Lu Zixi's eyes flickered with darkness for a while. Asking her to apologize to Shiyu was more painful than plucking out her heart. But with so many people looking at her in the square, she couldn't escape at all. Lu Zixi took a deep breath, walked in front of Heshi, and leaned over slowly. "Shiyu, I'm sorry. It was our Academy Student Council's misconduct that wronged you. But," she paused and said, "Shiyu, if you knew that there was a problem with your score, why didn't you report it to the invigilator as soon as the results of the written assessment were announced? In this way, we can deal with the problem earlier, and it didn't have to develop into the current situation. Can you explain that?" Chapter 1175. Joining Huang Medical Branch. When Lu Zixi said this, many people were also puzzled. The difference between 999 points and 503 points is so big, he should have found out right away. Why didn't he bring it up right away? Heshi put her arms around her chest and said with a half-smile, "President Lu, are you trying to say that I didn't score 999 points but it was another person? So, the Academy Student Council not only made a mistake in the scores of 2 people but even more? Maybe even among the candidates who were eliminated in the first round, there were innocent people who got implicated. They are really unlucky then." Lu Zixi's face was ashen, and she could no longer pretend. She said coldly, "Mr. Shi, what does this mean? I'm just talking about facts? Don't normal people ask questions the first time they find out that there is a problem with their grades?" "I'm so sorry, I'm not a normal person." Heshi smiled lightly. "Without the score of 999, I can still be admitted to the Miracle Healer Academy and the Heaven Medical Branch. I'm too lazy to question. Do you have any opinions? If it weren't because someone was too annoying, I wouldn't expose this." After speaking, Heshi turned around and was about to leave, but she was stopped by Dean Li Qingxuan from the Heaven Medical Branch. "Student Shiyu, since it has been proved that your cheating was just a misunderstanding, we will not expel you from Heaven Medical Branch. You will still be a member of Heaven Medical Branch. We will work together in the future. I believe you will definitely have a splendid future." As soon as Li Qingxuan said this, Zheng Shouyue and the boy beside him became nervous. The boy wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Zheng Shouyue. Zheng Shouyue's face looked disappointed, but he didn't say anything. Heshi raised her eyebrows and looked at Dean Li with a mocking smile. "Is Dean Li's brain all right? What do you mean by being a member of the Heaven Medical Branch? I remembered clearly that Dean Li personally expelled me from the Heaven Medical Branch. Who do you think I am? You can expel me and recruit me back at your wish? You!" Li Qingxuan was so furious that the muscles on his face twitched. He had never been so rudely humiliated by a student before. "Shiyu, don't go too far. The best branch of Miracle Healer Academy, a freshman can stay in his Heaven Medical Branch. By staying in Heaven Medical Branch, only then can you get enough medicinal pills and crystal stones every month and you can live in the most luxurious dormitory. If you leave Heaven Medical Branch, do you think you can have a future? I'm giving you face to recruit you back and giving you a chance. Thank you Dean Li for the chance." Heshi interrupted Li Qingxuan with a faint smile, "But I'm not interested in your chance. I have decided to join Huang Medical Branch." As soon as Heshi's words came out, the other branch deans who were planning to recruit Shiyu in the square immediately looked at each other with ugly expressions. Zheng Shouyue was overjoyed and couldn't believe his ears for a while. Li Qingxuan said viciously, "Do you know what kind of place Huang Medical Branch is? There are only wasted people with no future. Even the dean doesn't have any future. Staying in the Huang Medical Branch, no matter how talented you are, you will be ruined for life. You better think about it." Chapter 1176. Draw a good lot. Heshi heard that the Heaven Medical Branch's dean's words were harsh, but it seemed to have no malice. She retrained her arrogant attitude a little and smiled slightly. "Thank you, Dean Li, for your kindness, but when everyone doubts me, only Dean Zheng is willing to take me in. Therefore, my decision will not change. I decided to go to Huang Medical Branch." Li Qingxuan's face turned grim. Finally, he shook his hand fiercely and said, "Since you want to ask troubles for yourself, as you wish." Seeing Li Qingxuan leaving in annoyance, Zheng Shouyue's excited eyes were slightly red and his beard was trembling. However, he still remembered to seek justice for his newly received disciple. He squinted at Elder Qin and said, "Elder Qin, I will submit a report to the Council of Elders about all the accidents in this assessment. You'd better think about how to explain it to the superior. As for these two people," Zheng Shouyue pointed to Feng Yunqing and Chen Jianqing and said coldly, "One of them tried to murder my disciple and the other seized my disciple's achievements. You better handle it properly. Otherwise, don't blame me for causing you trouble." The uproarious cheating incident of Shiyu ended with a dramatic ending. Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing were each detained in the dungeons of Miracle Healer Academy, waiting for their crimes to be reviewed before making their sentences. Zhang Chong, the secretary of the Academy Student Council, got his points deducted and was expelled from the original Earth Medical Branch to Huang Medical Branch. Shi Yu, on the other hand, rejected Heaven Medical Branch's reinvitation and chose to go to Huang Medical Branch, which was tantamount to slapping the face of Heaven Medical Branch in front of everyone. Therefore, when Shi Yu went to the Heaven No. 1 dormitory to pack her luggage, everyone in the Heaven Medical Branch glared at her and wanted to beat her up badly. However, Shi Yu showed her powerful ability in front of everyone, which made the people of the Heaven Medical Branch fearful. Those who really had the capability didn't want to lower themselves to fight with the Foundation establishment stage. So even if they were angry, they could only endure it. The Gold Core stage students in Heaven Medical Branch who had been severely punished by Shi Yu couldn't help but grit their teeth and said, "We just let this bitch get away like that? Dean Li and our Heaven Medical Branch are being shamed in public. If we don't teach him a lesson, where should we put our face in the future?" "Don't worry, how could we just let him go?" The other person sneered and said sinisterly, "Isn't he going to Huang Medical Branch? Of course, he will move into the Huang dormitory. I have already greeted the butlers in charge of drawing a lot for the dormitory. They will definitely help him draw a good lot." "What do you mean?" "Hee, have you forgotten the cursed one in Huang dormitory? I can guarantee that as long as Shi Yu moves in, he won't be able to survive a night. He will run away like a dog." "Ha, you are so amazing. You even let Shi Yu and him get the same dormitory. Shi Yu is doomed this time. This is what you get for messing with our Heaven Medical Branch." Heshi was completely unaware of the plot of the Heaven Medical Branch students at this time. She had just received the dormitory location and inscribed jade slip she had drawn, and she was looking in the direction indicated. Along the way, the surrounding environment became more and more desolate, and the spirit became thinner and thinner. It was completely incomparable to Heaven Medical Branch's beautiful scenes and rich spirit. Chapter 1177. Crazy Qing Luan complained as she walked, then she frowned and said, "Young master, when you draw a lot for the dormitory just now, why did they look so weird when they saw the room you picked? Could there be something wrong with that room?" Hashi smiled lightly. "I will solve it no matter what trouble it is. There is no need to worry about it." She was sensitive to people's emotions, so how could she not see the strange eyes of the person responsible for drawing lots? This dormitory was likely to be manipulated. But so what? The dormitory that Heshi had drawn was the Huang No. 1 room. As she got closer and closer to the door of her dormitory, The students and the manservants looked at her with more and more strange and puzzled eyes. When they knew that Heshi was staying in the number 1 room, the doubts in their eyes had changed to pity. When Qing Wan heard their comments that her princess was so pitiful, she was even more worried. "Young master, why don't you wait outside now? I'll go in and see if there is any danger." "Don't worry about them." Heshi smiled lightly, then she activated the inscribed jade slip and walked in. "Since we are here, let's go in." Qing Wan was still worried about Heshi's safety at first, but when she saw the situation in the dormitory, this worry completely turned into worry for her own master. Huang dormitory was very simple. There was only one barren courtyard and 2 rooms. One was the main room, and the other room was damp and cold. It was full of musty smell and piled with various junks. But in this main room, there was only 1 room in total, and there were 4 beds in it. The room had no other decorations. Qing Wan exclaimed, "Young master, why isn't this 1 room per person? Are you going to share a room with other people? How can it be? This is absolutely not allowed." Heshi was amused by Qing Wan's fussing expression. She reached out and grabbed the bed, and found that it was made of heavenly heart wood, which was very strong. The environment of Huang dormitory couldn't be compared with that of Heaven dormitory at all. But Heshi felt very kind to see such a dormitory, because the beds here were divided into upper and lower berths. In addition to tables and chairs, there were also pill refining furnaces and spirit gathering arrays in the empty space. The beds only occupied a small area. The entire dormitory didn't seem lively. Looking at the dust accumulated on the railings of the beds, she knew that there should be no people here for at least 3 days. Moreover, in the entire room, only the upper berth on the west side had bedding. The other beds were bare. Obviously, she only had 1 roommate. Heshi said indifferently, "Huang dormitory should be a dormitory of 4 people. Unless I leave Huang medical branch, I have to live in the dormitory with others." Qing Wan seemed to be troubled, and she looked at Heshi with a grievance. "But you are, if the master finds out that you are sleeping in the same room with another man, master will go crazy." Thinking of Nangong Yu's jealous look, Heshi burst out laughing. Then there was a faint missing in her heart. "I seem to not see that guy for a long time. I really miss him a little." She coughed lightly. "We cultivators don't need to take a bath, don't need to change clothes. The bed is only used for letting mental power rest. We won't use it at all normally. Most of the real practice and study are in the branch. What does it matter who I live with? Qing Wan, you should stop worrying." Chapter 1178. Dead? Yes. But Qing Wan pouted reluctantly, but she didn't say anything. "My princess is so good. What if she attracts another man again? Master will rip off my skin." However, after all, there was no other way. She could only resentfully use magic to clean the room and make the bed for Shiyu before leaving reluctantly. Miracle Healer Academy's student dormitories were, in principle, not for non-students. The students of the upper 4 branches were also allowed to have a servant to serve them because of their luxurious dormitories. However, the students of the lower 4 branches were not so lucky. The servants could only live in a place according to regulations. Miracle Healer Academy implemented competitive education so that people with better strength and better grades get more luxurious treatment. People with insufficient strength could also yearn for a higher quality life. Heshi took Qing Wan to see her residence. Because Qing Wan was a woman, and there were not many servants, so her living conditions were good. Heshi was relieved by that. They strolled around the academy for a while. After checking the positions of some enchantments, they returned to their respective dormitories. However, before Heshi got to the door of her dormitory, she found that the students along the way looked at her with mocking eyes. There were also whispering voices from time to time. "This kid is so unlucky. Do you think he still has a place to live tonight? He is already considered lucky. If he happens to meet that person, the end will be even more miserable." Heshi was wondering what they were talking about. When she reached the door of the dormitory, she immediately reacted. Heshi frowned as she saw her beddings that were thrown outside. A young student beside her pitied her, so he said, You should go to the dormitory butler to get a new room. The person inside is really not something you can provoke. But more people were gloating and waiting to see Shiyu's good show. Hashi chuckled lightly, raised her hand, and kept the beddings into the void. Then she swaggered into her courtyard and kicked open the door of the main room. Although Huang Dormitory's dormitory had an enchantment, it was the most simple. Anyone outside the enchantment could clearly see the scene inside. Everyone was stunned by Shiyu's kick. But immediately, many people showed a look of pity or gloating. They felt that Shiyu was dead this time. As soon as Hashi kicked the door, she felt an impression of a powerful spiritual force rushing toward her. With her real strength that was comparable to the peak of the gold core stage, she almost fell to the ground and vomited blood. Hashi focused her gaze, and her body swayed. The water spiritual power in her body mixed with a little wood spiritual power instantly shielded the spirit pressure from her body. It would no longer pose a threat to her. There was a slight from the room, then the spirit pressure dissipated, and Hashi finally saw the scene in the room clearly. A man in a black shirt was sitting in the room. He looked like he was in his 20s. His facial features were clear like they were carved out of a knife. He was cold and handsome. Only his brows seemed to be coated with a layer of frost, and his pupils were deep like the abyss. When looking at someone else, his gaze didn't contain human emotion at all. Hashi frowned. "You threw my things out?" Chapter 1179. So what? The man in a black shirt glanced at her as if he was looking at a dead thing. He said indifferently, "Get lost." Simple words, but it triggered Hashi until she laughed. She had always been used to being arrogant. This was the first time she met a guy who was colder and more arrogant than her. Hashi put her arms around her chest and said with a half smile, "Why?" The man in a black shirt still looked indifferent as he said, "Want to live? Get lost. Want to die? You can also try to stay." "Sorry." Hashi smirked and said coldly, "I don't want to die, but I don't want to get out. So there is another way. You get lost." Hearing this, the man in a black shirt's indifferent eyes finally wavered. He squinted, then he disappeared and attacked Hashi. A cold light flashed in Hashi's eyes, and she moved quickly. For a while, countless afterimages of Hashi surrounded the man in a black shirt. The man in a black shirt raised her eyebrows slightly. The contempt and indifference in his eyes faded a bit, turning into a dignified look. The next moment, countless Hashi attacked the man in a black shirt. The slender jade-like fingers were blooming like tender lotus leaves, but when the attacks approached, they carried a chilling murderous intent. In the dormitory of Miracle Healer Academy, students could cultivate and fight, but they couldn't destroy the building. Therefore, conflicts between students were generally resolved by melee fighting. Otherwise, if a spell was used, the entire dormitory would collapse. Hashi was an assassin in her previous life, so she had full confidence in her melee combat level. So far, except for Nangongyu, she had never lost in pure combat. Even when she fought Feng Yunjing. If it weren't for Hei Sha Flag in the 100 Herb Cloud Smoke Maze, he could only be beaten by her without a chance to fight back. But the movement and fighting skills of this man in a black shirt shocked Hashi. "I have already exerted all my strength, but the man in a black shirt seems to be at ease." The most important thing was that there was a thin layer of spiritual power on the man in a black shirt's hands and body like an armor. This attack couldn't do any damage to him. However, in Miluo continent, how many people could turn spiritual power into armor at will? Even the peak of the nascent soul stage might not be able to do it. The man in a black shirt fought with Hashi for a while, then his spiritual power burst out and shrouded Hashi quickly. Hashi was limited by his spiritual territory, and there was a momentary pause in her movements. A pair of cold and rough palms grabbed her throat instantly, pushing her against the wall. Hashi only felt a sweetness in her throat, and a trace of blood spilled from her mouth. The man's cold breath spouted on her face. The condescending eyes didn't carry a trace of human emotion. "You're not my opponent." In this situation, instead of panicking, Hashi laughed unscrupulously. "Really? But so what?" The man in black was stunned for a moment. He suddenly felt a slight stinging pain on his neck. He lowered his head in astonishment, and he saw that the clothes around his neck had turned into pieces and fell. Between his collarbone and neck, just close to the carotid artery, there was a small wound. Chapter 1180. Allowed to stay. If this wound went deeper, his carotid artery would rupture. Although it would not cause fatal injury to him, but the man in a black shirt's eyes turned gloomy slightly. This was the first time he was injured in Miracle Healer Academy. A mere young man, a mere martial artist of the Meridian stage, actually hurt him. That's right, the man in a black shirt saw through Heshi's disguise at a glance. Her true cultivation had reached the pseudo-gold core stage, but so what? Even the nascent soul stage cultivators were nothing like ants in the eyes of the man in a black shirt. The man in a black shirt released his hand, took a step back, looked at her and said, "Your name?" Heshi raised her eyebrows. Her face was pale, and blood was still coming out from her mouth, but her imposing vibe still didn't disappear. She smiled and said, "Before asking someone else's name, shouldn't you tell your name first?" The man in a black shirt frowned as if he was not used to the way Heshi spoke to him. But he still said, "Shenmu." Heshi smiled slightly, "Shiyu?" After introducing herself, Heshi raised her hand, and the dirty beddings appeared in the room. "Excuse me, Brother Xian, what does this mean?" Shenmu frowned again. "I don't like living with others." Heshi was amused by him taking it for granted. "I don't like to live with others too, nor do I want to live with you. But I drew this dormitory, why did you drive me out?" Shenmu's expression was indifferent. He lay down on the bed casually, took out a thick old book in his hand, read it on his own and said, "Because I'm stronger than anyone else, if I don't let them live, they have to get out. But," he paused and said, "you're very interesting. I allowed you to stay." After he finished speaking, he waved his hand, and the quilt Heshi had thrown on the ground disappeared, replaced by another quilt on her bed. Heshi gasped when she saw the quilt. It turned out to be a silkworm quilt, and it was also a silkworm quilt with 10 kinds of magic circles such as Spirit Gathering Array and Calm Mind Array. Heshi had only been seen it in record of everything. It was said that sleeping under it would not delay the cultivation, but it could also cultivate one's mind and condense his fundamental essence. If it was put up for auction on the black market, the price could probably reach a sky-high price. This guy just gave it to me casually? For the sky-high price of the silkworm quilt, I will forgive this guy for being rude just now. What did you say? Shi was moved to the Huang medical branch, and he stayed in the Huang number 1 dormitory? Wei Chengyuan looked at He Jiang and He Jieyun in disbelief and asked loudly, "You better clearly explain what had happened." He Jiang and He Jieyun bowed their heads guiltily. Thinking of their own slandering of Shi Yu and Qing Luan's accusations against them, they couldn't hold their heads up. After listening to He Jiang and He Jieyun's narration, Wei Chengyuan's face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. He didn't expect that when he went away for 2 days to treat the important person that Heshi cured, such a thing actually happened to Heshi. But now, it was still fine that Shiyu was sent to the Huang medical branch. The most important thing was that she stayed in the Huang number 1 dormitory. Wei Chengyuan frowned. "No, I must not let Shiyu live there." "Brother Wei, what's wrong with the number 1 dormitory? I remember that the dormitories of Huang medical branch are decided by draw lot. There is no good or bad, right?" Chapter 1181. Made a mistake. Wei Chengyuan said irritably, "Because the person living in the number 1 dormitory, no one in the academy, including the elders, dare to mess with him. All the people who stayed in the number 1 dormitory will be beaten up badly and get kicked out. A few arrogant people even got their cultivation abolished. However, no one can do anything to it." When Wei Chengyuan thought of Shiyu's stubbornness and arrogance, she would definitely get into conflict with him. By then, he couldn't imagine such a result. He Jiang was taken aback by Wei Chengyuan's statement, "There is such a person in the academy? But if that's the case, why do they still let students live with that kind of demon? Isn't it better to leave that dormitory to him?" Wei Qingyuan sneered with cold intent in his eyes. It seems that it was not enough for someone to drive Shiyu to the Huang medical branch. They even wanted to harm her in this way. I will find someone to settle the account. After that, Wei Qingyuan ignored He Jiang and He Jiyun and walked quickly toward the Academy Student Council. Lu Zhishi, come out and discuss this clearly. Wei Qingyuan kicked open the door of the Academy Student Council. He saw Lu Zhishi in a meeting at first sight, and he said coldly, Lu Zhishi, why did you frame Shiyu? You drove him to Huang Medical Branch, and you even put him into the Huang No. 1 dormitory. Do you want to kill her? Lu Zhishi's face was flushed after being scolded by Wei Qingyuan in public. Ren Shuling said angrily, Wei Qingyuan, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by us framing Shiyu? She is clearly the one who humiliated our Academy Student Council in public. Wei Qingyuan sneered, isn't it because your Academy Student Council first made a mistake in her assessment paper and then slandered her for cheating? This can also be called framing? It's obviously a statement of facts. Ren Shuling was so angry that he almost went wild. The other officers of the Academy Student Council were also indignant. On the contrary, Lu Zhishi had calmed down at this time. She took 2 steps forward and apologized to Wei Qingyuan with a guilty face. Brother Wei, I'm also very sorry for the mistakes made by the Academy Student Council in the entrance assessment. I didn't expect everything to be such a coincidence. Because we didn't check carefully, we had already apologized to Shiyu for the damage we caused in the end. I hope Brother Wei can forgive Zhishi too. Lu Zhishi's words were sincere, and Wei Qingyuan's anger subsided a little. He also didn't believe that Lu Zhishi would deliberately frame Shiyu, and everything might just be an accident. But when he thought about Shiyu's current situation, he couldn't help being indignant for his friend. Wei Qingyuan took a deep breath and said, even if the cheating in the assessment is a misunderstanding, what about the dormitory? Why was Shiyu assigned to the Huang No. 1 dormitory? Huang No. 1. Lu Zhishi said in surprise, isn't that person's dormitory? But I remember that this dormitory has long been out of the draw lot. I also want to know, why did Shiyu move in the dormitory that obviously can't be drawn in the lottery? Someone is clearly trying to harm Shiyu. Student-related affairs are all in charge of your Academy Student Council. You dare say that your Academy Student Council people didn't do any trick in this? Hearing this, Lu Zhishi lowered her eyes and said with a sad face, Brother Wei, you really misunderstood us. How could we do such a thing? The allocation of dormitories is only a trivial matter, and it is not directly under Academy Student Council. Maybe the butler of the dormitory in Huang Dormitory made a mistake. Chapter 1182. It's pretty good here seeing that Wei Qingyuan was still angry, Lu Zhishi said softly. Well, I'll accompany Brother Wei to the Huang Dormitory and let Shiyu redraw the dormitory. Is this acceptable for you? Wei Qingyuan was very anxious. He was afraid that Shiyu had already died in the hands of that evil. Xian Mu, the name was quite new at Miracle Healer Academy, because he hardly appeared in any classroom or competition. However, when mentioning the evil of the Huang Dormitory, almost everyone in the academy knew. Before everyone experienced his power, many people had been crippled by him. However, the elders and even Dean didn't dare to provoke him. No one would stand up for the injured students. If Shiyu was really crippled by Xian Mu, he couldn't even complain to anyone. However, as soon as Wei Qingyuan and Lu Zhishi arrived at the door of the Huang No. 1 dormitory, they saw that the door was shut. There was a group of people surrounding the door. They all looked weird. They pointed at the door, but they didn't dare to get close. Wei Qingyuan quickly pulled someone over and asked, Where's Shiyu? Did he come here? The man who was pulled looked strange. He pointed to the courtyard and said, He is in there, for 1 hour. The point was that they didn't hear anything except the sound of the fight at the beginning. Could it be that Shiyu was beaten to death by that evil? But even if he was beaten to death, his body and belongings should be thrown out, right? Wei Qingyuan was shocked. He was about to break into the courtyard desperately. The enchantment in Huang Dormitory's courtyard was so rubbish that anyone with some skills could break in at will. Brother Wei, don't be impulsive. Lu Jishi stopped him quickly. You can't break into this place casually. Don't lose your life for Shiyu. Lu Jishi said worriedly, but her eyes squinted slightly. It's better that Shiyu dies in the hands of Xianmu. As for Wei Qingyuan, although I don't like this man, and I hate him for being close to Shiyu, this man has a special status and could be useful in the future. Wei Qingyuan threw Lu Jishi away and was about to enter the dormitory desperately, only to see the door suddenly opened. A young man in a blue robe slowly walked out of the room. His face was like snow and his eyebrows were like paintings. Walking under this dark night, he looked like a fairy transfigured by the bright moonlight. Wei Qingyuan stared blankly at the young man walking toward him. He was in a trance for a moment. The onlookers were also amazed that they even forgot to be shocked. How did this person come out alive? Of all the people present, only Lu Jishi was full of resentment. Her clenched fists almost broke her well-maintained nails. It wasn't until the door of the courtyard was opened and the boy stood in front of him that Wei Qingyuan suddenly came back to his senses. He grabbed his hand and said, "Shiyu, let's leave this dormitory immediately. I will apply for a new dormitory room for you." Hashi frowned. Why? She thought it was pretty good here, after getting a silk quilt with 10 arrays. Wei Qingyuan said anxiously, "The person who lives here isn't easy to get along with. In short, you must not stay this place. I have already told Jishi that this is their mistake, and she will help you change a dormitory." Chapter 1183. No need. Lu Jishi was aggrieved, but she still smiled brightly. "Shiyu, I'm so sorry, this is a mistake of our Academy Student Council. If you want, we can change you a dormitory." Before Hashi could speak, a young man in the crowd said with disdain, "Are you Academy Student Council doing your job? How can you make so many mistakes? First, you made a mistake in other people's grades, and now you say you assigned the wrong dormitory. Who knows if you are intentional or not? If you aren't, then you are incapable, right? Don't stay in this position if you are incapable, lest you harm others and yourself." As soon as the young man said that, the onlookers immediately burst into laughter. The students in their area were all students of Huang Medical Branch, which could be said to be an outlier in the entire academy. The unequal treatment encountered in the academy had created their cynical character. If it was described with the words in Hishi's previous life, hatred for the rich. Therefore, Lu Jishi was admired and praised by everyone in the whole academy, but it would not work in this Huang Medical Branch. Lu Jishi looked extremely ugly, but she had always been very self-restrained. She didn't want to lower herself to care about this group of people. She could only look at Heshi and said, "Shiyu, let's go to the dormitory manager to draw lots again?" "No need." Heshi said casually, "It's good to live here. I won't move again. After all, who knows, if I move again, there will be a bigger accident. Wouldn't I lose more than gain?" Heshi's words meant something, and the students of Huang Medical Branch on the side understood it. They all laughed out loud. Wei Qingyuan said anxiously, "No, you can't live here. You don't see any danger because the person in the house hasn't come back. Why don't you just move to my place? My courtyard is big and Wei. There are many empty rooms there. I can guarantee your safety if you stay there." When Wei Qingyuan said such a proposal, he suddenly felt hot in his heart. Thinking of living in the same yard with Shiyu, practicing together and discussing together, he felt that the future was bright and his cheeks flushed slightly. Lu Jishi looked at Wei Qingyuan's reaction with a cold hint in her eyes, and she smiled. It turns out that Shiyu doesn't want to draw a lot again because he wants to live in Heaven Dormitory. But this is understandable. After all, Huang Dormitory can't absolutely compare with the Tianziho Dormitory. Lu Jishi's words made everyone look at Heshi strangely. Heshi glanced at Lu Jishi with a sneer. Before she could speak, a handsome man in a black shirt slowly walked out of the courtyard. As soon as everyone saw him, they were terrified. They stepped back quickly as if they would be hurt if they got close. Wei Qingyuan pulled Heshi and wanted to back away, but Heshi broke free and stayed where she was. When Lu Jishi saw the man in a black shirt, her heart throbbed slightly. He felt the man's strength so strong that she could only look up to him, but she forced herself to not get back. When Xian Mu walked out, he glanced at Lu Zixi and Wei Chengyuan, frowned slightly, and finally stood beside Heshi. If you let other people in the dormitory, I will throw you out. When he was about to leave, Lu Zixi hurriedly stepped forward and said, Senior Xian, I'm sorry. It was our fault that Shiyu lived in your dormitory. We will arrange him to another place immediately. Chapter 1184. Is she courting death? Xian Mu looked at her coldly and sat indifferently. Get lost, don't get in my way. When he said this, Xian Mu's eyes swept across Wei Chengyuan and the crowd watching from a distance, but he didn't look so fierce when looking at Shiyu. The meaning of those words was self-evident. Everyone was stunned by the scene. There was silence around the dormitory area, and no one returned to their senses for a long time. Seeing that Xian Mu was about to leave, Heshi suddenly frowned and said, I'm a light sleeper. If you come back late, it's best not to wake me up. Xian Mu paused. The surrounding atmosphere fell into a terrifying silence. Everyone thought Shiyu was crazy. She is actually requesting or warning Xian Mu. Is he courting death? But Heshi felt that this was normal. Since they were roommates, it meant that they had to get along for a long time. Of course, the taboos and habits between each other should be made clear. Compromise if possible. If it can't, then resolve it by force. Isn't this a normal thing? Xian Mu only paused for a moment and did not look back, but a faint voice came. Then his figure disappeared instantly. N. It's over with just N? What is this development? When did Xian Mu become so easy to talk? What about those unlucky guys whose cultivation is abolished? Are they all just unlucky? Everyone looked at Shiyu with not only shock but admiration, complete admiration. To be able to live with an evil like Xian Mu and to be accepted by Xian Mu, who is Shiyu really? Only Wei Chengyuan and Lu Zixi felt unhappy in the audience. However, Wei Chengyuan only regretted not being able to live in the same dormitory with Shiyu, but after confirming the safety of his friend, he quickly put that regret behind him. He just told Shiyu over and over again that if she was bullied, she must tell him. If she was not used to this place, she must tell her. But Lu Zixi only felt that there were countless bugs eating her heart, which made the jealousy in her heart grow while being bugged. At Miracle Healer Academy, I have always been high and respected. However, because of this Shiyu, I have been told to get away by men over and over again. Why do all these people regard Shiyu as a treasure, but they speak ill of me? How can I, Lu Zixi, be inferior to Shiyu? If things go on like this, maybe Shiyu will take away all my edge like in Yangon City again, and I will be trampled by her fame in the end. No, I will never allow this to happen again. In the remote courtyard of Miracle Healer Academy. Heshi sat in front of the stone table with her fingers on Zhang Yi's wrist. She was calm and focused. Zhang Yi stared at Heshi anxiously. His hand beside him clenched and relaxed over and over again. His palm was full of sweat. Although he felt that his illness was almost cured, he still felt anxious. What if Shiyu says it will relapse? Even more nervous than Zhang Yi was the master guard who originally guarded the yard. At this time, his eyes looking at Heshi were no longer contemptuous at the beginning, but they were filled with anticipation and tension. His eyes were almost fixed on Shiyu, hoping that she could say the answer he wanted to hear. Finally, Heshi retracted her hand and smiled. Little E, congratulations, your disease has been completely cured and will not recur. Chapter 1185. Threaten me again, really? Zhang Yi almost jumped up with joy. The pair of sparkling eyes were filled with joy. Brother Shiyu, then I don't have to worry about relapses in the future? I can live a normal life? Heshi nodded. With red eyes, Zhang Yi stood up and bowed deeply to Heshi and Wei Chengyuan. Brother Shiyu, Brother Wei, thank you. Without you, I don't know how long I would have to suffer from this pain. Wei Chengyuan smiled and said, Little E, since you have recovered, you can go to the academy to study normally. I have already gotten a place for you to study in the Heaven Medical Branch. You have a strong talent for beast taming. Heaven Medical Branch Dean Li has always wanted to recruit professionals in all aspects, so he has agreed to your admission. Zhang Yi blushed and looked at Heshi. Brother Shiyu, what branch are you from? You're so good, you must be from Heaven Medical Branch, right? As soon as Zhang Yi said this, Wei Qingyuan's face turned ugly. The fact that Shiyu was kicked out of Heaven Medical Branch made him feel extremely bad these days. Heshi smiled lightly. No, I'm from Huang Medical Branch? Huang Medical Branch? Zhang Yi exclaimed. Seeing that Wei Qingyuan and Heshi didn't speak, he suddenly said, Then I'm going to Huang Medical Branch too. Wei Qingyuan sighed. Little E, don't be impulsive. The situation in Huang Medical Branch is very complicated. There are simply not enough elders to teach in the branch, and those students are also very different. You can't exert your talents at all. Shiyu goes to Huang Medical Branch is also due to special circumstances. Seeing Zhang Yi insisting, Wei Qingyuan suddenly smiled and said, Little E, didn't you say you have a brother in Heaven Medical Branch? Why don't you ask your brother first to see what he thinks? As soon as Zhang Yi thought of his brother, he jumped up 3 feet high excitedly. Yes. Brother. He has been worrying about my illness. I've been missing for so long, he must be very anxious. I'm going to tell him the good news right away. When Zhang Yi was about to rush to the door, he was stopped by the expert guard. The guard's expression was cold and aloof. Just a cold look made Zhang Yi instinctively step back. The originally excited smile all turned into fear. The guard said coldly, When you enter the academy, remember what you can say and what you can't say. If you dare to reveal anything that shouldn't be disclosed, I guarantee that your end will be 100 times worse than your illness. Zhang Yi shivered all over, nodded desperately, and dared not say a word. Wei Qingyuan smiled. Uncle Chiu, don't worry, little E is a sensible child. He won't talk nonsense. This was the first time Heshi knew the title of this expert guard, Uncle Chiu. Hearing Wei Qingyuan's words, Uncle Chiu nodded. Zhang Yi felt as if he had been granted amnesty and left the courtyard in a hurry. In the small courtyard, only Wei Qingyuan, Heshi and Uncle Chiu were left. Uncle Chiu glanced at Heshi lightly and he said solemnly, I will report the situation here truthfully to his honor. You have him get ready and wait for his honor's summon. Wei Qingyuan bowed and said, Yes. Uncle Chiu squinted and looked at Heshi coldly. You better remember, whether what you see or hear here or in other places in the future, what can be said and what can't be said. If you dare to say one more word, if you threaten me one more time. Heshi turned around and looked at the man with a sneer. Even if you have anything to do with Wei Qingyuan, don't expect me to save people. Chapter 1186. Try it you. Do you know who you're talking to? Uncle Chiu glared angrily. He had never met anyone who dared to speak to him like this in this academy. Heshi sneered. I'm not interested in knowing who I'm talking to. All I know is that none of your people can cure this disease, only I can cure it. I only treat based on my personal preference. Whoever made me happy, I will save even without paying me. If I'm offended, even if you kill me, I won't treat no matter how. Do you want to try it? Uncle Chiu was stunned for a moment, then his eyes filled with coldness and murderous intent. Just a mere doctor, a kid of the foundation establishment stage, how dare you speak so shamelessly? Do you believe that I'll crush your bones right now and let you taste the taste of living hell? Heshi raised her eyebrows, and she exuded a powerful spiritual power. Her black hair fluttered without wind. Great. Let's try it now? It's just that even if I really die, your so-called his honor can only endure the torment of the disease from time to time and go down to hell with me in the end. Heshi's temperament had always been arrogant to those who forced her. She could ignore those weaklings' slander because she didn't put them in her eyes at all. If someone wanted to force her to submit, it would only happen in their dreams. Wei Qingyuan was so frightened that his heart almost jumped out, so he rushed between them and said loudly, Uncle Chiu, calm down. Shiyu's temperament has always been like this. Please don't be bothered with him. Now, Shiyu is the only one who can cure his honor's illness. Do you really want to ruin his honor's chance of recovery just because of a spur of the moment? Uncle Chiu also calmed down at this time, looking at Heshi with complicated eyes. This kid is obviously not at the foundation establishment stage, but his spirit pressure even made me at the peak of the nascent soul stage feel a little threatened. This young man seems to have some skills. He squinted and said, I hope you really have the ability to cure his honor. After he finished speaking, he disappeared from the small courtyard in a flash. Seeing that the person disappeared, Heshi turned her hostile gaze to Wei Chengyuan. Wei Chengyuan smirked, leaned over and said, Shiyu, don't be angry. I didn't mean to hide from you. It's just that the identity of his honor is really special. I don't dare to talk without permission. Heshi squinted and said, This his honor is in Miracle Healer Academy? Where does he live? Wei Chengyuan was a little strange by Heshi's question, but he still answered, He is indeed in Miracle Healer Academy. He lives in Baijingshuan, which is the garden in the enchantment on the south side of Miracle Healer Academy. It's just I can't really mention the identity of his honor. Shiyu, are you willing to heal him? As long as you heal him, you will definitely be able to get great convenience in Miracle Healer Academy. Wei Chengyuan asked very carefully. He already knew her character. She only persisted her own way, and she would not change her attitude for any power or public opinion. He was really afraid that Shiyu would refuse to treat the big man, and he was even more afraid that Shiyu would be angry because of his deception. Unexpectedly, Heshi smiled and said, Oh yeah, I'll treat. When his honor summons you, you can inform me. Beijing Pavilion? I remember that this place is a forbidden area that I couldn't when I was investigating the academy. Maybe Wu Qi is there. So, of course I have to take a look. Chapter 1187. Cold World. Zhang Yi hurried to Heaven Medical Branch and asked someone to inquire about his brother Zhang Chang's whereabouts. Anyone who heard Zhang Chang's name all looked contempt. Zhang Chong, he was kicked out of Heaven Medical Branch for making a big mistake. He can never come back in his life. What? Zhang Yi said anxiously, Then where is my brother? He, where else can the people who got expelled go? Of course, it's the garbage center of Miracle Healer Academy, Huang Medical Branch? Zhang Yi murmured, Huang Medical Branch? Isn't that the branch where brother Shiyu is? The person who answered Zhang Yi's question couldn't help but looked him up and down, then he frowned and said, Are you Zhang Chang's younger brother Zhang Yi? Didn't he say you've been missing for a long time? Why did you suddenly appear? How would Zhang Yi answer his question? He hurriedly ran straight to Huang Medical Branch. At this time, Zhang Chong, who was in the Huang Medical Branch, was drunk. He stumbled and fell on the corner of the backyard of the branch. A group of students from Huang Medical Branch all frowned because of the smell of alcohol from him. Someone glanced at him and exclaimed, Isn't this Zhang Chong, the officer of the Academy Student Council? Why is he so drunk here? What Academy Student Council officer? Another person sneered, You didn't know? He made a mistake, was kicked out from the Academy Student Council and Heaven Medical Branch. Now he is just a trash from the Huang Medical Branch. Even worse than us. It turns out that he has fallen. Look at him, how does he have the look of a gold core stage senior? He is also very pitiful. He was expelled from Heaven Medical Branch, and no one helped him at all. I heard that the officers who worked together in the Academy Student Council spat on him when they saw him. What's more, the people in Huang Medical Branch despised the privileged people the most. He has no place in it at all. His future is really sad. Their voices gradually faded away, but those words seemed to remain in Zhang Chang's ears. Now he finally realized what it meant to be in a cold world. After being expelled from Heaven Medical Branch, his fellows of the Academy Student Council who once called him a brother and all his previous classmates looked down on him and alienated him. The students from the lower branch who flattered him before, all came to trample him and humiliate him. People from Huang Medical Branch looked down on the Academy Student Council's officer like him, so they naturally would not welcome him. Even everyone in the dormitory united and threw his bed into the utility room. Zhang Chong really felt the gap from heaven to hell. But these were not the saddest for him. The saddest thing was that he was now in such a state of despair that he no longer had the ability to find his younger brother. His younger brother Zhang Yi had been ill since childhood, and there was no way to find a cure outside. That's why Zhang Chong and his brother worked so hard to get into the Miracle Healer Academy, but when they entered the Miracle Healer Academy, his younger brother disappeared for no reason. He had been searching for years in Miracle Healer Academy and still couldn't find him. Now that he ended up in such a situation, there was even no hope. Brother, it's really... A boy's excited voice suddenly came from his ear. Brother, how did you become like this? Zhang Chong raised his head in a trance, and he saw a familiar face in his drunken eyes. It was the face he had thought about countless times day and night, the face of his younger brother. Chapter 1188. Guilty, he smiled. Am I drunk enough to have hallucinations now? Brother, I'm sorry for you. Not only did I not find you, but I also put shame. Also, there is no way to shine on the lintel for our Zhang family. Brother, I'm sorry for you. Brother, wake up, I'm back. The young man kept shaking Zhang Chong's shoulders. In a hurry, he quickly condensed a ball of water spiritual power and poured it on Zhang Chong's face. Zhang Chong was drenched in water and finally woke up. When he was sure that the person in front of him was really Zhang Yi, he trembled with excitement. Little E, is it really you? Zhang Yihong nodded and nodded. Brother, it's me. It's really me. My illness has been cured. I can live a normal life from now on, and I can study with you. Brother, I'm back. Zhang Chong couldn't bear it any longer. He hugged his younger brother and cried lowly. What did you say? Shiyu cured you? Zhang Chong exclaimed in disbelief after listening to his brother's narration. Because there was no way to disclose what happened in the small courtyard, Zhang Yi could only lie that he was isolated because of his illness. Until recently, he met a good person with superb medical skills and completely cured his illness. And the person who cured him, Zhang Yi did not hide it, was Shiyu. Hearing Zhang Yi excitedly and gratefully describe the process of Shiyu's treatment of his illness, Zhang Chong's heart was almost eaten up by guilt. Originally, Brother Wei was going to put me in the Heaven Medical Branch because I'm very talented in beast training. But I heard that Brother Shiyu was kicked out of the Heaven Medical Branch because he was framed, and now he is in Huang Medical Branch. So I also really want to go to Huang Medical Branch. It just happens that you are here. That would be great. I don't want to go to Heaven Medical Branch where they blame indiscriminately. Zhang Chong closed his eyes with a sad look. If the younger brother knew that I was the one who framed his savior, how sad would he be? Will he still forgive himself? And Shiyu, who saved my younger brother, what about him? Because of a mistake, not to mention I changed Shiyu's grades and kept it a secret out of fear. Later, I also hide the key information for fear of affecting Kaiyu. In the second assessment, no one knew better than him and Kaiyu what Shiyu had done and what kind of injustice he had endured. Although Shiyu would not be expelled from Miracle Healer Academy for cheating, there were still many people in the academy who reject her. There was no other reason because in the image released by Elder Qin, people were afraid of the fact that Shiyu letting him die. She also didn't tell the 5 spiritual pill, so many people still had doubts and felt that she was still cheating. However, Shiyu, did he cheat? Did he not help him? There has never been. No one knows this fact better than himself. Shiyu's amazing talent and his innocence. Zhang Chong clenched his hands, and divine sense lightly touched a recording talisman. All the shadow summoning stones were collected after the assessment, whether they were damaged or intact. But at that time, Zhang Chong didn't like Chen Jianqing very much, so he secretly copied a copy of Chen Jianqing's image in case of emergency. As soon as Shiyu's cheating broke out, Zhang Chong wanted to take out the recording talisman. However, Kaiyu actually served as a witness to Shiyu's cheating and joined other students to submit an application for Shiyu's expulsion. Chapter 1189. Dungeon. Kaiyu was Zhang Chong's benefactor. He could gain a firm foothold in Miracle Healer Academy was inseparable from Kai Yu's help and guidance. Even his admission to the Academy Student Council was recommended by Kai Yu. If he exposed the image of Chen Jianqing, it meant that Kai Yu was lying, and it would naturally ruin Kai Yu's reputation. How could he do this? There was a pain of struggle in Zhang Chang's eyes. Looking at his younger brother's clear eyes, he slowly lowered his head. The dungeon of Miracle Healer Academy was similar to Spirit's sealing prison. It was heavily guarded here, and ordinary people couldn't enter without authorization, and those who were locked inside may never see the daylight again. The guards of the dungeon were standing at the door, chatting with boredom. Suddenly, two figures were approaching. When the guards saw the young man, he immediately smiled and said, "Deputy President Kai, you come to the dungeon again to collect fire?" Kai Yu nodded with a smile, but his face was a little pale. His hands were even tightly gripping his clothes. Kai Yu used fire to refine pill. He specialized in refining offensive pills that targeted soul. This was a very important talent in the Miracle Healer Academy, and it was also the reason that he could be the Academy Student Council's deputy president. However, the maintenance of fire was different from ordinary spiritual fire. It needed to be nourished by grievances and spirits. Therefore, Kai Yu had received special approval from the Academy and often went to dungeon to cultivate and nourish fire. The guards didn't stop and quickly let Kai Yu in. However, seeing a small figure following Kai Yu, someone couldn't help but ask, "Who is this?" Kai Yu forced a smile. "It's my new boy. I need him to help with some spiritual herbs today." After saying these, the guards naturally did not stop them and quickly let them in. However, after Kai Yu and the figure left, they didn't run to the usual training place, but they went straight in one direction and finally stopped in front of a cell. The short figure was originally wearing a cloak, but when he removed the cloak, a pretty face was revealed. It was Lu Zhishi. The people locked in the cell were Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing. Kai Yu said in a low voice, "Zhishi, there are people patrolling the dungeon every day. If someone finds you coming in secretly..." Lu Zhishi smiled softly and said, "Thank you, Kai Yu, for taking the risk to bring me in." She smiled and stared at Kai Yu with watery eyes as if filling with infinite gratitude. "Don't worry, I just have a few words to ask them, it won't take long. If anyone finds out, I won't drag you down." "Zhishi, don't say that." Kai Yu looked at her with sincerity immediately, and he said excitedly, "I'm willing to do all this for you. To be able to protect you, I'm very happy." Lu Zhishi's cheek flushed as she lowered her head. Kai Yu suppressed his pounding heart and said softly, "I'll go to the usual training place first. Zhishi, come over immediately after you've finished your question." Lu Zhishi nodded. After Kai Yu's figure completely disappeared, Lu Zhishi set her eyes on the two in the prison. Feng Yunqing's eyes were cold and she sneered, "Fairy Zhishi, the president of the Academy Student Council, why are you here?" Chapter 1190. Why did they die? Chen Jianqing also woke up at this time. He crawled over to Lu Zhishi and cried while saying, "Fairy Zhishi, President, save me, save me." Lu Zhishi brushed her robes and smiled faintly. "Feng Yunqing, Chen Jianqing, don't you all hate Shiyu and wish him to die? I'll give you this opportunity to personally drag Shiyu into hell with you guys. What do you think?" Feng Yunqing's eyes lit up when she heard the words. She saw Lu Zhishi's cold and indifferent gaze in her gentle smile, and a chill went down her spine. What do you want to do?" Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing were dead. Their injuries suddenly went worse, and their bodies festered. They died extremely miserably. As soon as the news came out, the students of the entire Miracle Healer Academy were in an uproar again. A rumor spread quickly in Miracle Healer Academy. "Have you heard? When Shiyu and Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing were fighting, they were poisoned, and it will only be triggered until 3 days later, so they both died so miserably." "No way? Why does Shiyu do such a thing?" "He must be afraid that his cheating will be exposed. That 999 assessment paper isn't Shiyu's at all." Chen Jianqing knew the truth, so he was silenced. Also, the 5 spiritual pill in the second assessment. Shiyu didn't explain exactly how it came from. Right? That's right. Besides, he didn't help his team member in the elusive forest. Such a vicious person, it's not uncommon for him to poison someone. You haven't seen the tragic state of Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing. It's really horrible. Their skin was peeling off inch by inch. Shiyu is so vicious, so what if he has a great talent? If this kind of person stays in the academy, maybe we will be poisoned by him one day. He will pay for that. This matter must be thoroughly investigated by the academy. If Shiyu did it, he must pay the price. That's right. Put him in the dungeon too, so he can't come out for the rest of his life. Zhang Chong blankly listened to the voices of the people passing by, and his face turned pale as he stood in place in a daze. He was still struggling with whether to repay Shiyu for saving his brother's life or repay Kai Yu's kindness. But now, he could no longer hesitate, he could no longer be a coward. Zhang Chong clenched his fists abruptly. The flame of determination flashed in his eyes as he ran toward the cafeteria not far away. Miracle Healer Academy's Student Council. Kai Yu entered Lu Zhishi's room. He said with a trembling voice, "Zhishi, what's going on? Why did Feng Yunqing and Chen Jianqing die? Did you do something?" Lu Zhishi's eyes widened in shock. Her face was full of hurt, and her body became unstable. "Kai Yu, are you doubting me? Am I such a vicious person in your heart?" As Lu Zhishi said, there were tears in her eyes, and her face was pale. She looked really sad and pitiful. Kai Yu immediately dispelled his doubt and quickly said, "Zhishi, that's not what I meant. How can I doubt you? It's just that he knew better than anyone that Shiyu wouldn't kill them because he didn't have to. However, why did Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing die?" The truth is revealed, and it is after Zhishi went to visit them? Lu Zhishi took out the silk handkerchief, wiped her tears and said softly, "Kai Yu, no matter who did this, Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing are both dead now. And it is even after you and I went in. If people investigate thoroughly, it will affect you. So, the only way now is to make Shiyu take this charge." She stepped forward and grabbed the young man's hand for the first time. She pleaded earnestly, "Kai Yu, I don't want anything to happen to you, so we can only let Shiyu bear this crime. You know what I mean?" There was a chill in Kai Yu's heart, but the girl's earnest eyes made his heart turbulent. "Everything is going in the direction that I don't want to see the most, but can I say everything? No, absolutely not. So, I should let Shiyu die? I should let Shiyu take the charge of murdering his classmates?" There was pain in Kai Yu's eyes. For the first time, he began to hate what he had done. Miracle Healer Academy Cafeteria. Miracle Healer Academy of course had a cafeteria that sold spiritual food, otherwise if everyone relied on cultivation and medicinal pills to fill their stomachs, it would be too hard. Therefore, although the cafeteria here was not too prosperous, there were still countless students entering and leaving every day. After Zhang Chong came to the cafeteria, without hesitation, he activated the recording talisman with spiritual power. It was noon at this time, and there were always students coming and going in the cafeteria. Many people were still indignantly discussing the deaths of Feng Yunqing and Chen Jianqing, clamoring to punish Shiyu for killing. But suddenly, a bright light appeared above the center of the canteen. Then, in the originally empty air, the scene of the jungle field began to play. The images recorded by the shadow calling stones had figures, so when images were reproduced, there was naturally sound. A man's voice quickly resounded in the cafeteria, "Shiyu? How come there are so many medicinal pills?" Appearing in the image were Chen Jianqing and Wang Hai lying on the cliff above the valley. The perspective of the image also switched with the vision of Chen Jianqing and Wang Hai, and it finally landed slowly at the bottom of the valley. There, a handsome boy was wiping the sweat off his face while opening the pill refining furnace. What appeared in the pill refining furnace were dozens of medicinal pills with transparent color. Just by looking at the shape and color, everyone could tell that they were the 5 spiritual pills. The people watching this scene in the cafeteria were stunned. Some people couldn't help shouting. Didn't they say that the 5 spiritual pills were brought in by Shiyu cheating? Isn't this clearly refined by Shiyu himself? Moreover, more than 30 grade 4 medicinal pills were made in one furnace, and he was using the low-grade pill refining furnace. How superb is Shiyu's pill refining level? Just now everyone was cursing Shiyu collectively, but at this moment, they were all shocked by the content played in the image. No one would suspect that the image was fake. Even a refined master couldn't fake an image record, not to mention, it was so flawless. However, the shock this video brought to them did not end at all. Immediately afterward, Chen Jianqing and Wang Hai in the video began to plan how to snatch Shiyu's medicinal pills and kill her. They taunted the poison spiritual bee, led poison spiritual bee to Shiyu and wanted to make Shiyu die in an accident. Chapter 1192. Something bad. Fortunately, Shiyu was very vigilant. When she saw the poison spiritual bees were chasing Chen Jianqing and Wang Hai, everyone in the cafeteria let out a burst of happy laughter. Someone couldn't help but said angrily, "It turns out that Chen Jianqing is such a scum. He not only stole someone else's result, he even murdered his teammate. Even if this kind of person died, he deserved it." Wang Hai too. He was the one who plotted against Shiyu first. It's right for Shiyu to stand by and watch him die. Before these people's speculations were finished, they saw Chen Jianqing come to the river. Seeing that the two were about to be overtaken by poisoned spiritual bees, Chen Jianqing let Wang Hai die for him and climbed up. Afterward, when Chen Xiaoying and others came over, Chen Jianqing lied to them. And everyone else believed Chen Jianqing's nonsense and accused Shiyu. It was like everyone who was watching the image at the moment. The voice of discussion gradually faded. Although the image was still playing, everyone looked at each other with shame and remorse on their faces. They didn't even dare to look up to face the handsome young man in the image. Zhang Chong looked at everyone's reaction, and a smile finally appeared on his face. He wiped the tears from his eyes and murmured, "Little E, brother can finally do something for you." Academy Student Council's office space. Lu Zhishi sat at the top, glanced at the officers sitting below with a bit of solemnity on her face, and sighed softly, "I believe everyone has heard about the accidental death of Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing. The incident has already had a huge impact on Miracle Healer Academy, making everyone feel uneasy, lest they will be the next. I have already investigated with Deputy President Kai. Before Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing died, no one had visited. That proves that they were not killed after being put in prison, but when they were fighting with Shiyu. At that time, the root cause had already been planted. We have never had such a blatant crime in the academy, so we must investigate this matter thoroughly. Shiyu's murder motive is sufficient and he has the most suspicion, so I, in the name of the Academy Student Council's president, now request to put him in jail to wait for his trial. Does anyone have any opinion on this?" The officials below, except for the haggard-faced Caillou, all nodded. Ren Shuling was even more excited. "We should have dealt with this damn Shiyu long ago. If we let him continue to do whatever he wants at Miracle Healer Academy, will our Academy Student Council still have face?" Before Ren Shuling could finish speaking, the office door was slammed open. A young man rushed in with panic, and he said while panting, "President, Deputy President, something bad happens." Lu Zhishi frowned. She was displeased that the matter she had been looking forward to was interrupted. Ren Shuling even said angrily, "Didn't you see that it's an important meeting time? Why did you run in Rashi and say something bad happened?" The young man didn't seem to hear Ren Shuling's words at all. He just looked at Caillou with a panicked look, then he swallowed and said, "President, Deputy President, the cafeteria is now in an uproar. About Shiyu's cheating, the matter has now spread out. Everyone is calling Deputy President to give an explanation." Chapter 1193. Infuriated Lu Zhishi's brows twitched suddenly. She stood up abruptly, and she almost lost control of her facial expression. "What do you mean? Make it clear. Kai Yu's body shuddered heavily, but then he seemed to be relieved. He made a desperate and relieved smile on his face. The same thing happened in the elder meeting. Because of the death of Feng Yunqing and Chen Jianqing, the elders and the branch deans were discussing on how to handle Shiyu. Elder Qin strongly demanded that Shiyu be imprisoned for inspection. He believed that the deaths of Feng Yunqing and Chen Jianqing were absolutely inseparable from Shiyu. Xing Shouyuan naturally strongly objected. You said that they were killed by Shiyu. What evidence do you have? If there is no evidence, don't even think of arresting my student. The opinion of the elders was also divided into two factions. Some agreed that Shiyu should be arrested first, while others believed that a thorough investigation should be carried out first. Elder Qin said with a sneer, I have long felt that Shiyu's performance in the assessment was strange. It was because of this rat that we had many accidents in this assessment. The death of Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing is definitely the case. He planned it long ago to silence their mouth. Such a vicious person, I will never agree to let him continue to move freely in the academy. But the elders' opinions had not been unified, so the boy in green clothes hurried in, Master, Master. Something big happens in the cafeteria. Elder Qin and others hurried to the cafeteria. They saw a group of students gathered around. Each of them was with righteous indignation. Almost everyone was talking about Shiyu. He just hurried over before he could hear Qing's words. When he saw everyone was talking about Shiyu angrily, he immediately said angrily, Did you see, Shiyu is just a rat. Let him stay in the academy. Before the words of Elder Qin were finished, the image in the air played again and again. The clear replay of that scene stunned all the elders present, and it also made Lu Zixi and Ren Shuling, who had just arrived, look pale. They almost fell down. Elder Qin regained his senses and said angrily, Who put this up? Who is it? Zhang Chong walked out of the crowd slowly, holding the activated recording talisman in his hand. His face was pale, but his eyes were very clear and persistent. Elders, deans, I played this image. Who told you to play it? Elder Qin slapped him angrily. Did you collude with Shiyu? You deliberately broadcast some forged evidence for him, and you even incited your classmates. You people are so disgusting. You still don't want to admit you're cheating and hurting your classmates? You must be expelled. Immediately expel. Zhang Chong staggered when he was beaten, and the image of the recording talisman also disappeared. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. But he bit his teeth and immediately input spiritual power again, and the image in the air appeared again. Elder Qin was trembling with anger. He was about to slap Zhang Chong to death when he suddenly found that the surroundings were eerily quiet. All eyes were on him, with suspicion, scrutiny, and disapproval. Even though students looked at him with no respect anymore, and more of them were indignant, Elder Qin suddenly panicked, and Zhang Chong had stood up from the ground at this time. His voice was clear and authentic. Everyone knows that I was the invigilator of Chen Jianqing, so I knew what he did in the elusive forest. Chapter 1194, Guilty. I hated what he did at the time, so I recorded this image with a recording talisman, hoping that Chen Jianqing would not be so arrogant. But I didn't expect that these images would become the only evidence to prove Shiyu's innocence. Because Deputy President Kai is my benefactor, I once did not want my testimony to bring disaster to him, but this time I really can't remain silent. Zhang Chong gritted his teeth and raised his head to look at everyone around him. Shiyu is innocent. His talent, his demeanor, are beyond the reach of all the other candidates. He didn't cheat, let alone letting his peers die without helping. On the contrary, he almost sacrificed his own life in order to keep them alive. Why would such a person cheat? Is it necessary to cheat? How could such a person bother with Chen Jianqing and Feng Yunqing, the two useless rats? Why would he need to kill them? Do you still believe that kind of speculation after watching this image? Everyone was a little excited. They nodded in agreement with Zhang Chong's words. Elder Qin said angrily, Zhang Chong, Do you know that copying the contents of the recording stone without authorization and revealing the secrets of the Academy will be severely punished? I'll give you another chance. Did Shiyu let you forge this image? It doesn't matter, I've already gone all out. Zhang Chong suddenly raised his voice. I dare to promise with my life that the image I released is absolutely true. Elder Qin, do you dare to release the recording stone in the hands of Deputy President Caillou? All the survivors' recording stones will be inspected by the elders. Especially you, the chief invigilator of this assessment, Elder Qin. I don't believe that none of you found out that Shiyu was wronged. As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar in the audience. If everyone's attitude toward Elder Qin was just skeptical, now it had become a question filled with righteous indignation. The Miracle Healer Academy assessment, known as the fairest, turned out to be such a shady scene. Allowing other students to frame an amazing genius, how terrible was this incident? Elder Qin looked around. His body trembled with fear, and his clenched palms were full of cold sweat. He shouted sternly toward the boy in green clothes behind him, Ah Qing, arrest this man who disturbed the order of the Academy immediately. Hurry up. Wait. Zheng Shuyue took a step forward and said coldly, Elder Qin, are you guilty? We haven't figured it out yet. How can you arrest this kid? Zheng Shuyue, do you have to go against me? What does this have to do with you? Zheng Shuyue smirked and said, Why not? Did you forget? This Zhang Chong was expelled from Heaven Medical Branch a few days ago and is now under my Huang Medical Branch. Since he is a student of Huang Medical Branch, he is my people. How is it not related to me? Elder Qin's face turned pale, and the other elders also looked at him with doubts. Li Qingxuan of the Heaven Medical Branch even said coldly, Elder Qin, you'd better explain this matter clearly. If you have reviewed all the recording stones, it is impossible that a student is falsely accused. Are you really framing Shiyu on purpose? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.